Welcome to Investigations in Ritual Abuse Training Class 2. I am your instructor, Goel. Today's class deals with credible allegations and their essential components. Today's agenda is as follows: a recap of credible allegations at first, and then the essentials of an allegation, followed by the allegation game. We'll proceed from there to explain why researchers should separate the perpetrator from his community, making him an outsider or an other. From there we will cover the network of the perpetrator, and get into understanding and how it ties in with execution. We'll wrap up by explaining what you'll be doing as a researcher, the keys to playing the allegation game, while simplifying the process. In closing, I'll explain which notions you should rid yourself of in order to be effective as a researcher. Then you'll have your homework assignment. A credible allegation begins with a victim, continues with corroborating evidence, and ends with an arrest. It does not necessarily end in a conviction, but an arrest is important due to the fact that sex crimes cases are revenue negative, and prosecutors do not take spurious allegations to trial. For an allegation to result in an arrest and a court case, the prosecutors and law enforcement had to have a reason to believe the victim. There had to be evidence of the victim's credibility, and the perpetrator's guilt. Sometimes we will be dealing with past cases involving the same perpetrator who is in our current case. Those cases will be relevant to understand his patterns and his victimology. They will provide you with valuable insight into the perpetrator's behavior and habits. As always, they will begin with a victim making a credible allegation borne out by the evidence. As always, the victim is the first essential component of an allegation. Without a victim telling their story, you've got a second-hand gossip column. With a victim, you can answer the who, what, where, when, and why questions that drive every investigation. The victim's story, coupled with their evidence, will lead you to verifiable facts. You'll have to determine if the allegation can be prosecuted anew. Is there an issue with the statute of limitations? Was the original case dismissed with prejudice? Are there additional, newer victims who fall within the statute of limitations? Never assume that your opponent is stupid. Your opponent, if they are a pedophile ritual abuser, will typically have decades of experience committing abuse and getting away with it. They are diabolically clever, extremely smart, and they are above all else socially intelligent. They will have inserted themselves into communities or groups as credible, ordinary individuals with good or even sterling reputations. The allegation game is simple enough. First, know the culture and identify the communities in which your perpetrator exists. Understand their social rules. Once you know and understand these things, you can leverage them to your advantage. What's important for you to understand as an outsider is this: check your feelings about the community at the door. No one cares how you feel about how they live. If you're not Catholic, but the community is, keep your feelings about Catholicism to yourself. Your job is to understand the culture, the community, and the rules in order to separate your perpetrator from each and make him the other. That way, they will understand that you aren't attacking them, only him. Your perpetrator will face a jury of his peers, not yours. They will face a judge who may know them, be prosecuted by people who may know them or their family and friends. How you structure your allegation determines whether they see him as one of their own or as something alien or other. If he is one of them, they will defend him because they are defending themselves. As you proceed through the allegation game, you will need to identify the peers or work associates of your perpetrator. You'll need to identify his friends, his family members, and the secrets that drive his dynamic with each of those groups of people. We are creatures of habit. The two places we will travel to most often are work and home, and everything else we do will fall along that geographical route or area, or within a limited radius of it. Most of us go to between 4 and 6 locations on a regular basis. We form social bonds based on mutual interests and values. For a ritual abuser, the abuse is like anything else, it's an interest he will want to group around with others. We're social animals. Some of us like bowling or golf. These men like raping children and inverting religious rituals and ceremonies to glorify the devil. Their routines and social interactions will reflect as much if they are guilty. Understand the perpetrator's community and culture, its social rules, and understand the peers, the friends, the family relationships, and the secrets within those dynamics. So that you can formulate a strategy to isolate your perpetrator and his accomplices from the wider community so that others don't perceive your work as an attack on their community and culture. So that you can execute an effective series of steps to develop proof of the allegations, which can be turned over to law enforcement and civil attorneys in order to obtain a which puts the perpetrator and his accomplices in prison, on sex offender registries, and opens them up to civil liability and judgments, as well as public scorn. The exposure is permanent in a sex crimes case. There is no washing off the stain. Understanding, formulating, and executing an effective strategy that results in a conviction is key to burying a sexual abuser. As a researcher, you will be in communication with sources, building relationships with them over time to cultivate trust in order to gain information. You're going to invest time, money, and energy into this work, but if you've got a family, remember that they come first. Documenting and organizing your findings will be critical. Without organization, all you'll have is a jumbled mess of information. At the end, you'll be building a case to hand off to law enforcement. This is a chart simplifying the process of the allegation game. It gives you a visual illustration of how that game plays out in simple terms. I want you to get rid of these nations. The law has nothing to do with justice. Fairness is a myth. Your goal is to identify the corruption in a system and find a way to win in spite of the odds being stacked against you. Deal with the world as it is, not as it ought to be. As a researcher, you either generate results or you generate excuses. There is no in between. False preconceptions are the enemy of effective, accurate work, and the precursor to whining excuses as to why we fail. Get rid of these notions. Get rid of your excuses in advance, and you'll find yourself achieving results rooted in reality. Go to victim statement number 1 at Dropbox. Read the statement. It is 49 pages long, in Word, and therefore it is searchable. Write a 3-page double-spaced summary of the statement, and email it to 1830goel@gmail.com. In your summary, you should apply the methodology outlined in this lesson. Who were the peers, the friends, and the family members of David Lee Hamblin? Are there any secrets disclosed in the statement? There will be a quiz attached to this assignment covering the contents of the statement. The link is in the description on YouTube as well. As always, thanks for playing.